Hi everyone, this week we are going to do a set of towels as a hostess gift, and these are quick and easy. I really like them because they are an open design, and we're going to go through everything I did to get these towels to come out the way I did, the products we used, and where we got the designs from. Let's start with where we got the designs from. I am a big fan of Embroidery Library, and the projects that they show on their website I find to be very high quality with great instructions. So I do a lot of my embroidery work from Embroidery Library, and the design on the left is our cornucopia, and that is design C as in cat, 5326. It's called Cornucopia Black Work. And the design on the right is called On the Vine, and that is H as in hat 6531. So if you want to go over to Embroidery Library, you can look those up, download them. I did not do the extra large size. I did mine in the medium size, and depending on the hoop size of your embroidery machine, please pay attention to that. Because they do come in different sizes. You don't ever want to download a design that's bigger than your hoop. So if you're not sure of your hoop size, definitely get with the manufacturer of your embroidery machine. Find out what size hoops you can use so that you know what size designs to buy. For Elna, our format is Jeff, and Embroidery Library, though, carries all the formats. So if you have a Viking or a Brother, you'll still be able to download these designs. We did do a border band here, so we're going to show you how to do that as well. It's just a little extra decoration for the towels, and that was just a strip of fabric cut from some really great autumn fabric that I just happened to pull in this year, so I'm happy with that. And we're going to get started on showing you the other supplies that you'll need in order to complete these two towels. I've gone ahead and gathered all my supplies, which is what I do every time I set out to do machine embroidery. I don't like running around looking for thread. Where's my stabilizer? Where's my towels? What fabric am I going to use? So I always make a whole little pile of what I'm going to use prior to get started with my machine embroidery. You'll notice here I have some 505 fabric adhesive. I'll show you what we're going to do with that here in a minute. I have my handy dandy friction pen, which is heat soluble, so I'm going to use it to mark my towels. And then when I'm done, I'll be able to hit that with the iron and have that disappear. I have my different threads, and I'm using threads from 3 different manufacturers today. The brown for our cornucopia I'm using from Iris, and the gold and the orange for our work here with the pumpkin and squash. Actually, I'm using a embroidery thread from Metler. And then my other green is from Madeira. So I use a variety of different threads. Those are my favorites to use. I'm not a fan of some of the other brands on the market. I find that they tend to break quite a bit. So my go-to brands are usually the Iris thread and the Madeira first and foremost. And then if I need to fill in other colors, I'll go ahead and get my Metler out and use it as a silk finish or a fine embroidery thread. The machine is already set up with a top stitch needle, and my flash stick is over here on the side where you can't see it, but it's already been preloaded with the 2 designs. A quick word about flash sticks. If you are loading pages and pages of designs onto your flash stick and then one day you turn on your machine and the flash stick is empty, that is because the machine has kicked out the designs from your flash stick. The flash sticks only, the machines can only read so much information, and I've been fielding quite a bit of conversations lately with people that are loading too many designs onto their flash sticks and then the machine just wipes it. So if you're one of those people that load every design that you've downloaded onto a flash stick, you would be very smart to go ahead and back that up to your computer, but understand that if you do turn your machine on one day and your flash stick is empty, it's because the machine could not read it anymore. If you notice that the hourglass on your machine is spinning and spinning to try and find your design that you want or to upload the designs from your flash stick, you have too many designs on your flash stick. It's better to have several flash sticks, and keep in mind too that just because your flash stick can hold 70 gigs of information, it doesn't mean your embroidery machine can read that many gigs of information. The embroidery machines are not full-size computers. They're limited in what they can read and download from flash sticks. So keep that in mind that just because you can put all those designs onto a huge flash stick, it doesn't mean your machine will be able to read it. So note to self on flash sticks, just be aware of the limitations of your embroidery machine with your flash sticks. We've gone ahead and cut our border fabric. I've cut this at 4.5 inches. I've left the selvages on. I'm going to show you why I did that in when we get to that part. I have my 2 Dunroven towels. If you are embroidering on towels, I suggest you get the best quality towels that you can possibly afford. This is for a gift, so I want to make sure that I have really decent towels. It does make all the difference in the world on how the design will come out on a high quality, tightly woven towel versus a dollar store towel. If you're using a dollar store towel, you're going to have to stabilize a little differently because it doesn't have the tight weave that a high quality towel necessarily would. So note to self on that one, to buy the best towels you can afford. But you're going to have to stabilize based on what you buy. There's no hard and fast rules to all the towels. There's too many towels in the world to say, well, every time you use this type of stabilizer, you need this type of towel, or vice versa. So you're going to have to pay attention that if you have a thinner quality towel or a thicker quality towel, it's going to determine the stabilizer that you're using. Because my towels don't have any pile on them, like a terry cloth towel would, these are nice and flat, I'm not going to use a top layer of water soluble or heat soluble stabilizer, but I am going to use a cutaway stabilizer on the back. I find that my designs come out really nicely with a cutaway stabilizer. I can cut around very, very well. And when it goes through the wash, because I'm sure the towels will eventually get used, that stabilizer will soften, but it won't disintegrate. And I want that stabilization there going forward so these towels hold up to several washings as the person who's receiving them, you know, uses them. So I'm using a cutaway. My stabilizer of choice today is the Jenny Haskins. You have your own personal preferences, I'm sure, to your own stabilizers. They are all, it doesn't matter what your brand name is, as long as it's a high quality stabilizer. I like this because you'll see that it's evenly woven. There aren't huge chunks of stabilizer through that. And when you have huge chunks through your stabilizer, like blotches of stabilizer, that tells you that that is not a good quality stabilizer. The stabilizer should always be evenly woven without blotches or chunks of stabilizer and patches. So if you have a stabilizer that has those, use it up, use it for something, but move on to a better stabilizer. There's tons of stabilizers on the market. Do a little research, find out who your major embroidery companies like Embroidery Library use, or if you have personal preferences already, go forward with them. So today we're using Jenny Haskins. So we're going to go ahead and start hooping. I'll show you how we're going to hoop this towel and we'll get moving. Okay, so we have our Dunroven towel, and one of the things I want to make sure of when I go ahead and fold this towel is I want it to finish at a width of 7 inches across. I know how wide my design is. That gives me about an inch on either side for my design. And I'm going to leave this loop here. I'll cut this off when I get all done. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold this into thirds this way. And I'm going to measure across to make sure that I have 7 inches. So I have my 7 inches there. And I'm going to flip this over. I wanted to show you that first, just so that you understand how I measure out my towels and how I do that flip. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark this towel so that I know exactly where to put my design. So I know my design in this case, we're going to do the cornucopia first. And the cornucopia is 6 inches high, so I'm going to measure though 3.5 inches up from the bottom of my towel, and I'm going to make a mark there, and I'm going to make sure that I use my ruler, and I'm just going to draw that line there. I do that because I know that that's where I want one of my lines for my base of the fabric that's going to go on the bottom. I'm going to measure up a 1/2 inch from that, so I have, that's actually, this is going to be a sewing line. This is a placement line. And then from there, I'm going to measure up my 6 inches. So we're going to find 6 inches here on the ruler. And we're going to have to move this up here. So we have our 6 inches. And I'll mark that there. Always mark 2 lines in order to make a line across. Okay, so I know that's the top of my design. So at 3 inches, I'm going to make a mark here 1, 2, 3. This is a 1/2 inch here, so I know that you're probably like, what is that? That's a 1/2 inch line. And then because it's 7.5, I'm going to measure 3.5 inches over, and that's going to give me my center point for the towel. So when these two line up, I'm in this ballpark. Okay, so I know that that's where I need to put my hash mark here and my hash mark here. Okay, now this is part of the instructions that most people skip, and I never understood why they skip them, but I'm going to go ahead and explain this because that's why we do these videos. This is the back of my hoop here. I'm sorry, this is the back of my hoop here. That's what part's going to go in the machine. And the cornucopia design is actually pictured on the machine as coming this way. So that's great news because, well, I'm sorry, not the cornucopia. The squash and the pumpkins are coming this way. On the cornucopia design, it's flipped on the screen, so I'm going to have to turn the towel. So I want to make sure that I'm paying attention is because I'm extremely visual. I have to lay everything out exactly how I see it going into the machine. Now at this point, there's all these instructions in the world about hooping and how to hoop properly and don't pull your towel. And those are great instructions. But one of the things that I find to be extremely important is the fact that you use your plastic grid that comes with your embroidery machine. A lot of people don't understand what the plastic grid is for. And I'm trying to find my key right here. I'm going to loosen up my key here at the bottom so I can get this towel into this hoop. And I'm finding the center point here on my design with that hashed mark that I just made with the towel. So I'm going to line that up. And this is not a quick process. This is not something to be rushed. I don't know how many times that, you know, you think, oh, I'll just whip out this project, and yeah, you end up doing it over because you really whipped it out and it wasn't right. So I have this perfectly lined up in my hash mark, and now I'm going to tighten in my towel. There's a lot of talk about don't pull and don't stretch, and that this should sound like a drum when you get this all settled down. I pull and stretch. I just find that as long as I keep this grid in here, I can pull just a little bit. I don't pull a lot, but I think that's why they tell people not to pull, is because people start really just yanking on this, and it doesn't need to be done that way. So once I have that in the hoop, I know that that's where my center mark is. I'm going to still tighten this up. And of course, now there's words that people say are, oh, don't tighten with the screw once you put it in there. I think everybody has an opinion on this, and I don't think anybody's 100% right. So do whatever makes you comfortable. Because I don't need a huge area for my stabilizer, to save stabilizer, I don't like to use a ton of it. I'm just going to cut off a piece. I'm going to flip this over. This is where the 505 comes into play. I'm going to just spray this onto the stabilizer, not onto the towel. And I'm just going to float that there. Okay, that way I know it's going to stay in place. And we're all set to go to load it into the machine. I've gone ahead and loaded the towel into the machine. I have a bobbin weight thread in the bobbin, so that is a thinner thread that I like to use when I'm doing machine embroidery. Why use the expensive thread in the bobbin when nobody's going to see it anyway? And bobbin thread is thin enough that you can load hundreds and hundreds of yards onto it and go through a full design or several before you have to reload that bobbin. So I have a bobbin weight thread in the bobbin. My machine is all set to go. I have the towel in correctly. I've looked at it. I stared at it. I made sure that the towel's loaded properly like it should be. And I'm going to go ahead and get sewing on this and have it go. And then we'll come back in a minute once it's all done. So the towel with the pumpkins and squash on it is complete, and now we're going to do the lace cornucopia. The hoop goes in the machine this way, but because the design is printed going this direction, okay, the cornucopia is going to be here, I have to pay attention that my towel goes in the correct way. Otherwise, if I turn this towel this way, the cornucopia is going to print coming this way, and that's not what we want. So I'm going to make sure that I put the towel in. And I think that that is pretty commonplace for most folks. They, sorry about the bump on the camera. They forget that the pattern is going a certain way. Now, The machines all have the ability to spin patterns, and I can do that from a lot of different patterns. But in this case, the pattern is so big I cannot spin it. So in this size hoop. Now, if I had a bigger hoop on this machine, like on my 900, I'd be able to spin that design and put it in there exactly how I wanted. But it's not the case with this. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in and get this started, and then we'll go ahead and put on our bottom band and be done with our quick Hostess gift project. Okay, so at this point we have our towel that's embroidered, and we're going to take our 4.5-inch wide strip, and I want this strip to flip down, and then I'm going to flip this under so I still have this nice border here. So if you remember, I drew 2 lines earlier, one so that I knew where to place my embroidery design, and then I measured down 1/2 inch to give myself some clearance, and now I'm going to measure down 1/2 inch again, and that's where I drew a line there, and I'm going to put this right up against this edge. And at this point I'm making sure that I have a little bit of an overlap on either end, and I'm going to grab my ruler and my friction pen, and I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on to the brown piece of fabric, not the towel, but the brown piece of fabric. That's my sewing line. It's too hard to sit and try and wonder where my sewing line is going to be. So I'm going to mark in my sewing line. It's at 1/2 inch. I'm going to take my pins. I'm going to pin this in right on that line. I pull my pins as I sew. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this down. I'm going to press it. And when I do that press, I'm going to fold under this edge at the iron, okay? And then I'm going to top stitch the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And when I get to these ends, right before I do that, I'll show you how I do the ends. So I've gone ahead and sewn this part down, flipped it down, and then I ironed this, and there are some pins there to hold it so I can do my top stitching. I wanted to show you though how I handle this edge. It's really quite simple. We're not going to get too excited about it. So what we're going to do is flip that over. I'm going to fold in here, and then I'm going to fold in again, and then I'm going to pin it. So that's all that takes, is that fold in, and then when I go ahead and I stitch down that whole edge, I'll start here, come down, and then I'll go across the bottom and up the other side. And then at that point the towels are done and ready to give as a Hostess gift. Well, here's our finished product. I think they turned out really gorgeous, and I think for a Hostess gift they will be well received. I'm really happy with the way the embroidery library designs stitch out. They are always very good designs. I've never had any issues with their designs not completing their patterns properly. I love the extra border we added here at the bottom, and of course our Dunroven towels held up to 13,000 stitches a piece. So all in all, I think it's a good project. I hope you really enjoyed watching how to do these towels. Maybe it'll inspire you to do your own set of towels for upcoming holidays and visits. And we appreciate you watching our video. So be sure to like and subscribe for more videos from Kimberly's Quilting and Sewing.